We're now listening to the Dee Hankins Show. Life, curveballs, home runs, the Dee Hankins Show. Are you ready? Let's go.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to the Dee Hankins Show, where we talk about life, help you with your curveballs, and celebrate your home runs. The most terrifying thing is not losing control, but realizing that you have it. We love to say that we're a victim of our circumstance. We love to say, I'm angry because you made me angry, or I'm broke because the economy is rigged. But what if I said that 90% of your suffering is coming from the one person that you refuse to look at? Today, we're looking into the mirror, and we're going to be opening the only bucket that actually matters. This is episode 23, The Seat of Power. Bucket number 1. Let's get into it. Last week, we introduced my 3-bucket philosophy, the sorting mechanism for your life and for reality. Today, we're diving deep into bucket number 1, my choices. This is the bucket of absolute control. This bucket consists of your thoughts, your words, your actions, your reactions, your responses, your character. Hear me clearly. You have 100% control in this bucket. 100%. Not only do you have 100% control, you have 100% authority over this bucket. The economy might take your job, your spouse may break your heart, but nobody, and I mean nobody, can reach inside your head and choose what type of reaction you're going to have. Viktor Frankl was a psychiatrist that survived the Nazi concentration camps. He said that even in the most harshest conditions imaginable, the last of the human freedoms was to choose one's attitude in any given circumstance. Now, if a man can tap into bucket number 1 while he's in a concentration camp, you can definitely tap into bucket number 1 while you're sitting in traffic. Now, you may be thinking, I'm not in a concentration camp, D. I'm literally just sitting in traffic on the 405 freeway. But imagine this. You're headed to work on a Tuesday. You're already late. This guy cuts you off, okay? And immediately that heat starts to rise from your chest to your face. You start gripping the wheel, okay? You start mumbling these insults. These mumbles start progressing into screaming. You start gesturing at the window. You're replaying all these insults in your head. At that moment, you feel helpless. And that right there, that specific feeling, that is where you make the choice. That's the choice. Most people abandon their seat of power and let the heat of the moment drive the car. They stay in bucket number 2, which we already discussed, you have no control over. In order to get into bucket number 1, you have to learn to make the choice. You know what? I'm late. It is what it is. I'm just going to flip on a podcast, primarily the Dee Hankins Show. I'm going to take a deep breath. I'm going to put on my favorite song. I'm going to roll down the windows. I'm going to try to realize that although this car is driving super slow in front of me, that person may not be late. That person may be 30 minutes on time and just cruising because he's going to get to his destination when he was supposed to. Bucket number 1, my choices, is your seat of power. It is your throne. But most of the time we abandon it because we're too busy trying to sit in somebody else's seat. Now, here's the part where people start rolling their eyes during the training and where people turn off the podcast, but because it requires us to swallow some really jagged pills. When you take absolute control over your life, you lose the right to blame. Now, let's look at how this affects your core four assets. Let's use a financial example, the economy, okay? Let's say the economy is bad, which is bucket number 3. You can't fix that. You have no control over that. All right, so let's say you're a CEO and your budget is tied in, obviously, with the strength of the economy and what's going on. Now, you walk to your boardroom, you didn't hit your quarterly goals, and you look at your board and you say, hey, the economy is rigged. We didn't make our quarterly goals. We failed. All right. You're making excuses. Now, if you return to your seat of power, which is bucket number 1, your response may look different. Now, you miss your quarterly goals. Those are facts. The economy shifted. That's bucket number 3. You can't control that, but you can control how you respond to it, right? You could ask questions like, dang, did I pivot fast enough? Did I communicate with my team on the urgency? Did I get creative with the little bit that we had? Or did I get creative or innovative with the budget that we had? The moment you blame the budget, you're a victim. The moment you own your pivot, that is when you become a leader. That is when you feel the power of bucket number 1. Now, to understand the power of this, we have to look at a hard example. And let's take your physical pillar, okay? We'll talk about addiction. An alcoholic is not in control of their genetic predisposition. They can't control their chemical craving that's screaming at them at 2 a.m. to take another drink. That's a bucket number 3 problem. They have no control over that. However, they have absolute 100% control over the muscular movement of grabbing a bottle, opening the bottle, putting the bottle to their lips and drinking that. That is bucket number 1. They have that choice. The power is within that physical movement, not the craving, not the predisposition, but the physical act of grabbing it. Now, why is this distinction important? Because it shifts the battle. It goes from an external war to an internal war on integrity. Owning the my choices bucket number 1, is not about guilt. It's about realized power, realized control. It's about realizing no matter how deep the hole, I'm holding the shovel. In my book that I'm writing, there's a segment in there, there's a chapter in there that's titled Drop the Shovel. Put the shovel down. If you find yourself keep digging yourself into a hole, you have that power. You have the power to put the shovel down. You have the power to pick the shovel up. You have the power to keep digging. You have the power to stop digging. You have control over the controllables in your life. As you know, my passion is to help people build resilience, and it's a journey I've been on my entire life. That's why I created the Dee Hankins At Best Student Development Program. I started the program because I once was a student facing major curveballs, and I want to show students that they have a chance at a successful future no matter their background. We empower students with a 6-step framework called Win Your Challenges, and we build a network of support between students and parents and caring adults in their lives. If you're a parent, educator, or administrator and want to learn more about how we build bridges and transform school communities, I invite you to visit my website, deehankins.com. That's DeeHankins.com to learn more about how you can bring the At Best program to your school. So, how do we live in bucket number 1? Okay, because that is the goal. The goal is to stay in bucket number 1 24 hours a day, 365 days. Now, just like everything else, it takes it takes practice to perfect. It takes practice to master. So every time something happens where you get frustrated, angry, anxious, maybe you're struggling in a certain area of your life, look into the mirror and ask yourself one question. What is my role in this? Now, I've been on social media long enough to know that there are people out there that will hear that and just go straight to blaming the victim, blaming the victim, blaming the victim, blaming the victim. And it's just like, it's not blaming the victim. It's empowering the survivor, right? Empowering the survivor. Because I've seen it for myself, okay? When you ask, what is my role in this? You will figure out a lot about yourself and a lot about life. For instance, let's say your boss is a complete jerk. You have no control over that. So if you do this mirror test, what is my role in this? Okay, you will start to see where you have control. For instance, why do I still work here? Why haven't I updated my resume? Why do I let this person's opinion determine my self-worth? These are all questions that you can ask that put your power back in bucket number one, in the my choice bucket. Because if your boss is a jerk and he's treating you terrible and you feel like, oh, I have to work at this job, you're giving up your power. You're saying, here, treat me however you want. There's nothing I can do about it. And that is false. Right? The power of my choice bucket is really scary, but it's really powerful, because if you start to look at, dang, the reason why I work at this job is because it's close to the house. I can pick up my kids. This is what I call justification. This is also in my book, and I'm not going to dive too deep into it, but justification is a my choice thing. If working close to home, having a job that matches your schedule where you can pick up your kids, take them to practice and do all the fun stuff, whatever. If that justification outweighs your boss treating you like crap, underpaying you, talking about you, harassing you, not giving you the promotions, yada, yada, then so be it. Own it. You know what? This is my choice. My desire to be closer to my family and for this job to work at my schedule outweighs him being a jerk. And that is taking full responsibility for your life. Okay. On the opposite end, it might be like, you know what? I'm good. I can work at the bank down the street. I can drive 10 more minutes to another job where they're going to treat me better, so on and so forth. You have power. Some of us, I'm in schools a lot. Some of us have kids that are out of control. When me and DJ do our parent nights, you know, some parents are just like, my kid is wilding. That is bucket number two. As much as we think that we're adults and we can control our kids fall in bucket number two. Remember, you only have influence, but you can't make them do anything and you can't control them at all. Well, my kids are out of control. Ask yourself the question, what is my role in this? Have I been consistent with discipline? Am I modeling emotional regulation, or am I screaming too? Okay. I teach my teachers that you can't help the drowning kid if you're drowning with them. And what that means is if your kid is yelling and screaming and you're yelling and screaming, no one's getting anywhere. You can't save them. You're both drowning in the same storm. So ask, what is my role in this? That's how you consistently set up permanent can't even say that. That's how you set up permanent residency in bucket number one, my choices. The benefit of living in bucket number one is you're no longer waiting on Superman to come and save you. You're no longer waiting on the government to keep his promises. You're not waiting on your spouse or your boss to change. You're not waiting on your family to get it together and to stop telling lies. You're not waiting on anybody. You become the hero of your own story, the story that God himself has written for you and given to you. You are the main character in your story. All the gifts, talents, and skills, which are my choice items, right? Bucket number one items. You take full responsibility for those things. And when you fix bucket number one, my choices, the assets in there, your core four assets in there, your spiritual health, your financial health, the money, the physical health, the mental health, they become fixed too. Your peace, all of it starts to heal automatically. That's the heavy lifting. Next week, we dive into one of the most painful buckets, bucket number two, others' choices. We're going to talk about why you try to control people and how to finally let them go through forgiveness. If you realize you've been blaming other people for the choices that you have made, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We're building a community of people who want to take radical responsibility for their life, because when you take radical responsibility for your life, radical change happens. And finally, you might be listening to this and thinking, I need my whole team to hear this. They're always blaming the budget, the economy, but remember, you can't force them into bucket number one. However, if you bring this framework to your school, you're not just giving them a speech, you're giving them a shared vocabulary. You're giving them the tools to hold themselves accountable. I want to install a self-regulating operating system into your school culture. Imagine a boardroom where nobody blames the economy or the budget. Instead, their first question is, what is my role in this? And that is the culture we build with the 3-bucket philosophy and the potential protocol. So visit www.deehankins.com, click the booking link, and let's create a culture of absolute leaders. And remember, life throws curveballs, but even curveballs can be hit for home runs.